Welcome to MyShlaich Story Hour Chassidim series. Shluchim, I know you are all anxiously waiting to know what happened. What happened with all these sick people that came to Liozna to spend Simchas Torah and Shmini Atzeres and Sukkos by the Alter Rebbe in the freezing cold winter of Tov Kuf Mem Zayin 1786. All the people that got the cold and got the flu and they were running high fever. The Alter Rebbe said to Reb Pinchos Raizes that if they come to the Alter Rebbe's HaKofis, they will be healed. The shul is packed. Some people, they're mamish holding on to life by a thread. The doctor of Liozna, Reb Avram, gave up hope on many of the people and said there's really nothing he can do. We spoke about, in the previous episode, the story of Reb Achiezer, his two sons and his sons-in-law. Reb Moshe, who was staying in the house of his uncle, Reb Isaac Mechadish, and how Reb Isaac was yelling and screaming at Reb Pinchos Raizes and the other Chassidim that came to carry Reb Moshe in such a serious, sick state. He was mamish, he was sakonis nefashos for him to go outside. And Reb Isaac the Misnagid was screaming, Ratzchim, Ratzchim, murderers! How dare you take this person out in the cold to join HaKofis by the Alter Rebbe? But they knew, the sons of Reb Achiezer, they had complete emunah and bitachon in the Alter Rebbe's words. If the Alter Rebbe told Reb Pinchos Raizes that the HaKofis is going to bring about the refuah, the fire of the Torah, is going to take away the fire of their fever, this is what they had to do. And they were going to be Meiser Nefesh to do what the Alter Rebbe says. We left off. The sick people have arrived in the Alter Rebbe's shul. The shul that is in the Chosid of the Alter Rebbe's house. So there was the big shul, the sukkah. Wall to wall. It's packed. It's hot. Some people cannot sit. They have to be leaned against the walls. And they're quiet. Some people are laying and coughing and sneezing and groaning and moaning. It was a terrible, terrible sight to behold. And some people, they're mamish, they're kamat lifeless, laying over there. What is the Alter Rebbe going to do? What is the Alter Rebbe going to say to restore life and vitality and health to all those people present? Now, Rabbi Say, before we continue, the Frierdiker Rebbe, as he writes the story in the Kuti Deburim, goes on in great detail to elaborate and explain what exactly was the Seder of HaKofis by the Alter Rebbe. And I want to talk about that for a moment. So you see, on the afternoon of Hoshaina Rabbah, the Alter Rebbe had a minig to daven mincha very early. The same time that he would daven mincha on Erev Yom Kippur. So on Erev Yom Kippur, we daven mincha early because we have to have the Sudas HaMafsekes, you have to give a lot of tzedakah, right? There's a lot you have to go to mikveh. So you daven mincha on Erev Yom Kippur earlier than usual. And the Alter Rebbe would daven mincha early on Shmini Atzeres, on Hoshaina Rabbah as well. And from right after mincha, kinalach, one was already able to feel in the ear, Pashat Begashmias, a different avir, a different environment, as Simchas Torah was beginning to set in. Later in the afternoon, the Alter Rebbe would say a maimer to a few of the big lamdonim and Talmidei Chachamim and a few chassidim from the Chadorim. We spoke about the Chadorim earlier, and some of the special guests. A couple of hours later, after mincha, was Ma'ariv time. The Alter Rebbe had a small minyan we would daven Ma'ariv, and then the Alter Rebbe would start HaKofis together with, again, a small group of chassidim from the Chadorim and a few guests from out of town. Most of the chassidim were not present by this HaKofis with the Alter Rebbe. The Alter Rebbe would say all the Atar Reisos and lead all 7 HaKofis around the bima. And then the Alter Rebbe would hold the Sefer Torah in his left hand, in his Halakha hand. And then the Alter Rebbe would put his Halakha right hand on the shoulder of one of the Alter Chassidim, and together they would dance. Now, while this was going on, the Chassidim that were in this small minyan by the Alter Rebbe, they were experiencing such giluyim, they mamish felt like they were standing in the Beis HaMikdash. And with every ker, with every turn that they had with the dancing of the Alter Rebbe, they were mamish living a whole new experience. You know, like Chazal say, Misham hoyu shoyevim ruach hakedesh. It talks about Benegiyat Simchas B'Sheva. From there, they would draw divine inspiration. Whoever had the schus to be by this special small hakafis with the Alter Rebbe, known as the Yechidus hakafis, they were able to see the halakite shining on the Alter Rebbe's face. to hear the songs of joy coming from the Alter Rebbe and witness the dancing. Such a man, whichever person that managed to be there, felt that he too was caught up in mamish the Elam Esel Yenim, with the helikite that filled that little shul. This hakafis was known, like we just said, as the Yechidus hakafis. It's incredible and amazing the way the Frierdiker Rebbe describes this Yechidus hakafis experience. Now, Kinderlach, just like in the Beis Hamikdash, everything, every keli, every detail was precise and mesuder and exact. So too it was with the Rebbe. The time and place and every activity that the Rebbe did was defined in regulations, and all the Chassidim knew the punctuality observed, because they were all devoted to the Rebbe with all their heart and all their soul and all their might. And therefore, for example, everybody knew that the Rebbe's Yechidus HaKofis was only attended by those who had the schus to be picked by the person in charge to join the HaKofis. Now, everybody was davening and hoping and praying that they would have the schus to be named to be one of the people to go to this special kind of HaKofis, to be invited, because you couldn't go if you weren't invited. Nobody just, tried to squeeze their way in there. And if you were there once, you never got to go again. A few Chassidim, with a few exceptions in the Alter Rebbe's family, but very close relatives. But if you were chosen to go, if you had the schus to go, you went once, and you had to cherish that moment for the rest of your life. And the Pinchos Raizes was zeichet to be once by the Alter Rebbe's Yechidus HaKofis. After the Yechidus HaKofis, the Alter Rebbe would go into the sukkah, make Kiddush, and then go into the big shul in the Chotzer to start HaKofis. So that was the Seder. And the Frierdiker Rebbe is giving us some background in the Seder HaKofis of the Alter Rebbe before he continues the story, so we can understand what happened over here. But this year, the year of the terrible cold, the terrible storm, the year that hundreds of Chassidim that traveled to Liyozna became very sick, something unusual happened. When the Alter Rebbe came into the sukkah for Kiddush, after having the Yechidus HaKofis that we just described, the Alter Rebbe asked 3 Chassidim to join him. Who were these 3 Chassidim? One was Reb Michael Aaron Vitebsker. The other one was Reb Shapsi Meir from Bishinkovich. And the third one was Reb Yaakov. They all came next to the Alter Rebbe. And the Alter Rebbe said to them as follows: Reb Michael Aaron, you're a Kohen. Reb Shapsi Meir, du bist a Levi. Reb Yaakov, you're Yisrael. We have a Kohen, Levi, and Yisrael. The Rebbe said, I need a bezdin of 3, a Kohen, Levi, and a Yisrael. And I chose all 3 of you because you're going to make up this bezdin. I want you to listen to me making Kiddush. And after I say each bracha, I want you to answer Amen. And have in mind that your Amen is going on all the Helike Kavanis that I am thinking. Then the Alter Rebbe stopped and asked for 3 large barrels of wine to be brought in. Then the Alter Rebbe made Kiddush and poured some of his wine from his becher into one of the big barrels of wine. Similar to what the Rebbe would do by Keshel Bracha, right? The Rebbe has wine in the Rebbe's becher, and the Rebbe would take from the wine in his Helike becher and pour it out to the Chassidim coming by for Keshel Bracha. The Alter Rebbe turned to the 3 members of the Beis Din and said, I am now going to appoint you as Shluchei Refuah, Shluchim, messengers, emissaries of Refuah, of healing. Your job is to mix the wine from the first barrel, from the first keli, that I mix my own wine into, says the Alter Rebbe, mix it with the other 2. And then I want you to take from this wine, from my Keshel Bracha, and give it out to everybody that is sick. And with an Eibishter's help, you will be Shluchei Refuah, and everybody that drinks from this wine is going to be healed. Don't only give it to the men, says the Alter Rebbe, go up to the Weiber Shul. Give it to the men, give it to the women, give it to the children. Not only the ladies that are not feeling well from this machle, from this cold and flu, any woman that for whatever reason, Rahman al-Islam, was not able to have children yet, or whoever had difficulty during childbirth or had a miscarriage, Rahman al-Islam, through drinking this wine, this Keshel Bracha, they will be healed. Now, Kindalach, you can imagine, words spread in a flash that whoever is going to taste from this wine is going to be healed from any and all ailments and any machle. And then if a woman didn't have kinderlach or had a miscarriage, they will be helped Mulamayla from the Rebishter. The Beis Din of 3, meanwhile, they gathered a few young Chassidim to help them give out the wine. So they basically had a whole crew of Chevra that were going to go around to give out the wine to anybody that wasn't feeling well. So here's what's going on. You have the sick people in the shul. You have the barrels of wine that are getting ready to be distributed by this whole group of Chassidim. And you have everybody waiting anxiously to get some of the wine from the Alter Rebbe because they know that this is going to bring about the refuah. As soon as these 3 members of the Beis Din came into the big shul in the Chatzir, silence fell on all those present. What a shashtil. Everybody knew that these 3 people were chosen by the Rebbe and appointed to be shluchei refuah, and that their refuah was going to come from these 3 Chassidim. Everybody stared at them with such awe and reverence. The Beis Din, together with their helpers, stepped up onto the bima. And Reb Yankiv, the Yisrael of the Beis Din, began to chazer over and repeat aloud, word for word, what the Rebbe said. When he finished, he said, Ad kan divrei harav. Until now is what the Alter Rebbe said. Now I want to add something on my own. We have a Maseidah, handed down. We have a tradition, passed down from one generation to the other, that if one wants the bracha of a tzaddik to be realized, to be materialized, to be mekuyim, the person receiving the bracha has 2 conditions they have to fulfill. Number 1 is they have to have complete emunah pshuta, that the tzaddik's bracha is going to be mekuyim, without any other thoughts in mind. And the second condition is that has to be ready to take upon himself to carry out any of the ritzainis that the tzaddik is going to tell him to do. Whether it's in Aveda, whether it's in Limud Ateda, whatever it is, he has to be ready, willing, and able to be mekayim the ratzon of the tzaddik. Now, even though everybody heard what Rabbi Yaakov said, they asked another chassid, Rabbi Michal Aaron Nakayin, to please repeat it in a much louder voice so they could be doubly sure that this is what the Rebbe said. And with his big loud voice, Rabbi Michal Aaron, chazed over everything that Rabbi Yaakov said, and they began to give out the wine in a Masuda de Ge'efen. There was no pushing, there was no shoving. Everybody lined up nicely, and those people that weren't able to, get in line, the group of helpers to give out the Keshel Bracha from the Alter Rebbe went around to those sick, the men, the women, and the children, and made sure they all said L'chaim and had a little bit of the Alter Rebbe's wine. Soon after, the Alter Rebbe came into the main shul for Akafis. And again, it was a hush of silence. For the second Akafis, the minig was that the Alter Rebbe would say the first pasuk of Atar Reisa and then the last pasuk of Kimitziyin, and the Alter Rebbe would dance with the Sefer Torah for the first Akafa and the last Akafa, similar to what our Rebbe does by Akafis as well. So this is Be'emes, the second Akafis of the Alter Rebbe, because he already did Akafis earlier with the select few Chassidim, but this Akafis was with everybody. When you hear the stories of Akafis by the Rebbe's Akafis, our Rebbe also danced with the first Akafa and the last Akafa. In the early years, the Rebbe danced with the Rashag, and after the Rashag was older and the Rashag wasn't able to come dance by Akafis, the Rebbe danced by himself with the Sefer Torah. As a matter of fact, one year, the Rebbe had a special Akafa where the Rebbe danced with the Kinderlach of Tzivus Hashem. That's a fascinating story. We'll talk about that one time. Everybody participated in the Akafis of the Alter Rebbe. This is Shmini Atzeres by night. The next day, Shmini Atzeres by day, everybody talked about the greatness. In fact, the doctor, Reb Avram, said that for many of the elder Chassidim, from the elderly patients, it was mamish tchias hamesim, like literal tchias hamesim. He's saying these chevra, medically speaking, they were beyond hope. There was no way these people were coming back. And only through this clear nace, this milmayla miderech hateva intervention, were they saved. Now, Kinderlach, do you remember Rabbi Isaac Mechadish, the Misnagid, in the beginning of the story that we spoke about, who was the uncle of Reb Meisha Apotzker, the person who was screaming, Ratzchim, Ratzchim, murderers, murderers, at the Pinchos Raizes, and the sons of Reb Meisha that wanted to carry him out in his very, very sick state of mind, and the guy was pushed very, very sick. They wanted to carry him out in the cold to the Alter Rebbe's Akafis because they had emunah pshuta and the Alter Rebbe's bracha that coming to Akafis, this is going to be the refuah. Remember that guy? The guy that said that bringing Reb Meisha to Akafis is a mitzvah abba ba'aveda. Remember him? Oh, listen to what happened. When he saw what happened, when he saw the miraculous recovery of his nephew Reb Meisha, Reb Isaac turned into a Chosid. And later he said that the Amunah Pshuta in the Tzaddik that he saw from the sons of Reb Meisha, right, from his brother's grandchildren, he couldn't believe it. He would have never have believed that it was possible unless he saw it with his own eyes, that somebody could have such Amunah Pshuta in a Tzaddik. Even though Al Pi Derech HaTeva it made no sense. The Tzaddik said, take the people out on the kol to Akafis and they're going to get better. It made no sense. But these Chevre believed in the Alter Rebbe. The Misnagid saw it. He couldn't believe it. And then saw that the Alter Rebbe's bracha was Mekuyim. He became a Chassid. Not only did he become a Chassid, Reb Isaac, who was already such a big Talmid Chacham, took all his talents in Limud HaTorah, Nigla Torah, and now put a focus on learning Limud Chassidus. And he would chazer over every maimer that the Alter Rebbe said publicly and ask questions about the meaning of the maimer until he understood every single word and ois that the Alter Rebbe said. From this story, from the nes that the Alter Rebbe did, this open nes and Simchas Torah, bringing about the refuah to hundreds and hundreds of Chassidim, men, women, and children, all in the schus, in at least one case of Ramesha Apotzkev, the Amunah Pshuta, that brought Reb Isaac to become a Chassid of the Alter Rebbe. Breaking news. What? Yes, listen up. Tighter Shluchim. We're getting closer and closer. Shabbos Tzamen is just around the corner. I hope you mark the calendars. Shabbos Parshas Truma, Lamed Shvat for the boys. Shabbos Parshas Tetzaveh, Zayin Oder for the girls. Start packing for that awesome Shabbos Tzamen, because we're going to be bringing about as Geita Chosid, Esta Chosid, Shlofta Chosid, Ya Chosid, Ya Shliach, and everything you do, when you eat, when you sleep, when you go for a walk. It's part of you. It's in your DNA. And this is what we're going to bring. We're going to sing. We're going to dance. We're going to hear stories. We're going to play games. We're going to have an awesome global, let's say, Shabbos event with all the Shluchim all around the world and the Shluchis on their Shabbos Tzamen. So make sure if you aren't signed up yet for the Shabbos Tzamen, get involved, pack your smile, pack your chayas, bring that energy with you, and make sure you're at MyShlaich.com/Tzamen signed up for this amazing Shabbos that you're going to remember for the rest of your life.